Hi, I'm Etta, and this is Beauty Flip, where I help ordinary people discover what's so goddamn beautiful and extraordinary about them. Today, we're going to look at beliefs, and believe it or not, just how they actually shape every single thing about you. Let's dive right in. Well, hello, all you fabulous people. Today, I am telling you a little cool story about a kitty cat. Meow, 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 meow. This little cat was actually named, if you will, Schrödinger's cat. And some of you might be like, oh, I see where we're going. And some of you have no clue. Let me tell you about Erwin Schrödinger's cat and how absolutely strange quantum mechanics can be when you apply it to everyday objects, life. But before we go to his cat, let's talk about who is Erwin Schrödinger. Erwin Schrödinger was a theoretical physicist. More specifically, he was one of the very founders of what we call quantum mechanics, and best known for creating something that is called the Schrödinger equation, which describes how quantum physics evolves over time. He also contributed to things like statistical mechanics, thermodynamics, and things like general relativity, which, if we think back to a very famous guy, Einstein, has been something that has shaped the way we see modern physics and how this is a very part of our reality. Yay. But we got to find out about this cat. We got to understand how Schrödinger's cat is a very key part of what I call flipping your scripts. So, shall we? Erwin Schrödinger basically said that quantum mechanics, a very new science at the time he had started, kept insisting that particles can be in two states at once. Interesting. He said that these two particles could be both alive and dead. He said these two particles could be here and there. Particles could be both a wave and a particle, and that ultimately they could be everything and nothing. Okay, well, that's sort of hard to digest. I mean, I feel like we're going down into some sort of rabbit hole, but ultimately, this has been a powerful way to look at the brilliance of how life is shaped. So, let me explain a little bit about Schrödinger's cat specifically. So what this theoretical experiment says is that if a cat, meow meow, kitty cat, meow meow, is placed into a sealed box, and in this box with the kitty cat was potentially a radioactive atom, 50% chance of decaying, a Geiger counter, and a vial of poison that breaks if the atom decays. So basically, if we're going to say that from top down, if the atom decays, the poison would be released and the cat dies. If it doesn't, the cat lives. And so quantum mechanics basically says the atom, or in this case, the cat, lives in a superposition of both decayed and not decayed until someone observes it. So we use Schrödinger's cat as a shorthand. And in this, the ultimate kind of theory suggests that both a cat's fate is tied to the atom, and the whole system is described as both alive and dead at the same time until the box is open. Now you might ask me, what the heck does Schrödinger's cat and quantum physics have to do with me? I think that's fair. I think that's very fair. Do you think that's fair? I think that's fair. Let's kind of go into that, because today we're going to talk about the mythology of your life. We're going to talk about the rules by which you live by, and ultimately the beliefs that encourage you to focus your attention on certain outcomes. I know that I spoke to you a couple of episodes about being a very powerful and ordinary human being. Today, I'm going to help you understand just how powerful you are in creating the world that you live in each and every day. I'm using this idea of quantum mechanics to sort of prove a point. So now let's just step over, if you will, to Alfred Adler and potentially many other behavioral psychologists who sort of share with us an opinion in regard to how our beliefs shape the world. Ultimately, just like quantum physics, there is always a superposition where until someone interacts or observes or decides how something will be, the outcome could be multiple outcomes. In human life, that sort of interaction starts at the very core of something that is called a belief. This is ultimately the thing that shapes the outcome. I have seen so many people who truly believe in something absolutely ignore potentially facts that would prove them otherwise. So at any moment, you get to open the box of your life. And in that moment, you, with your very powerful brain and all the ways it perceives the world, get to interpret, decide, and ultimately from those decisions, choose how you want the story to unfold. All of these things come from the most magnificent part of our brain, and that is the power of our beliefs. Let's dive into beliefs. Ultimately, your beliefs shape your brain, and beliefs shape your body. They shape your perception of yourself and the world and other people in the world. And from this, they shape your behavior, and they shape relationships and how you act within relationships. They literally shape your personality and your identity. And from this, my lovely little human beings, your beliefs shape your identity and your world and the way you see people interacting. This is not a metaphor anymore. This is literally the way it is. So let's break it down a little bit. When you repeatedly believe in something, neuroscientists will tell you, this belief becomes reinforced with a neural circuit. When you repeatedly believe in something, this belief becomes reinforced with a neural circuit. The brain rewires itself, hello, around that expectation. Kind of scary if you think about that for a second. Let's go on though, just a little bit more in the field of neuroscience. When we change our perception, this is called predictive processing, the brain doesn't passively receive reality, it then begins to predict reality and fill in the gaps based on the new beliefs. So the brain sees what it expects to see. You change your mind and beliefs about the world, and you change the world. Wowza. I'm not done yet though. There is studies that go on where they call it change physiology. And this is where we're talking about placebo effect and also nocebo effects. Beliefs have been proven, the way someone believes something, to reduce pain, to change immune responses to ways that you experience potentially being sick and or injured, can actually alter hormone levels and can shift autonomic nervous system states. So the placebo effect, which if we can just name is believing in something, is not fake. It is literally honoring the fact that your beliefs will alter your biology. I have another one for you under neuroscience. Beliefs actually change your emotional regulation. So depending on what you believe, you will have emotional responses to what happens to you in the world. Things that potentially might be completely normal for one person, given another person's belief, could be something that triggers another. Where one person might believe something to be a threat, another might be a place where we interpret opportunity. Belief, the interpretation of what is happening to you, affects your nervous system, affects your emotions, and then affects your behavior. I want to dive a little bit further here before we bring this all home. We're going to talk a little bit more beliefs, but we're going to look at it from a psychological point of view. Ultimately, beliefs shape behavior, and behavior shapes outcome. This is the very backbone of many, many, many perspectives of very famous psychologists and also the ways that they created their therapies. So we're talking about Adlerian psychology, cognitive behavior therapy, schema therapy, narrative therapy, social psychology, attunement therapy, and positive psychology. Ultimately, they say in its most basic form is that your beliefs create the rules by which you live by, and that is your own private logic in which you decide the world operates. Your beliefs, this one's a doozy, determine your identity. It determines what you believe you are. It determines what you believe you are not. It determines what you believe you can and cannot do, and what you must and must not do, and what you should and should not do. Beliefs then, if we're just gonna follow the logic in this, will determine your relationships. They will help you decide your beliefs, who you can trust, where and how to create intimacy, how to deal with and resolve conflict, how to allow yourself to experience vulnerability, and how to create belonging. Your beliefs determine your future. So let's just bring this all home, shall we? You, my lovely little human being, live in an immense amount of beliefs. You literally wake up and your beliefs are already formed about who you are, your personality, as well as your identity within the society you live in. That is ultimately also creates your beliefs, the rules by which you will operate, the rules by which you will conduct yourself, the rules by which you will make good on this life that you've been given. Some of them, they are deeply, deeply spiritual and religious beliefs. Others are very specific to your family, to your culture, and potentially to you. In between that is a myriad of things that are beyond necessarily you, but not quite to the level of spirituality. They could be the culture of living in the country that you live in. They could be the magnificent way in which you were told what you are capable of because of the mythology of movies and TV shows and commercials and podcasts, like mine. And ultimately, in all of it, your brain will take in what it chooses to. Remember that episode? And it will filter out what it chooses not to. Your beliefs are the very reason why you are exactly the way you are, and ultimately who you choose to continue to be. I am not in any way saying the factors that society has put on you is due to you, but I would say culturally, if we all are agreeing to the culture in which we live in, then as a society, we are collectively, if not creating the belief, choosing to continue the belief. When I ask you to flip your script, I ask you ultimately to take a look at what are the beliefs that are keeping you in the way that you are living. Maybe very specifically in the jobs that you have. Maybe for some of you, whether or not you will go and be educated. Maybe for another group of you, whether or not you deserve to have the relationships you desire, the daily life play out the way you want. There's so many levels to the tapestry by which each and every one of us create our scripts. And most of the time, this level of truly opening your eyes to understand the scripts and looking at the beliefs that are underneath is an arduous task. And so I don't ask you to flip all of your scripts. I ask you to look at the ones that don't serve you. And in not serving you, to potentially choose another. In doing so, it's not necessarily going to be easy, phenomenal, perfect right away. It might take hard work. And some of that hard work is because you are literally, to some degree or another, fighting yourself. You, to some degree or another, need to dismantle the life that you've created that were built on these beliefs. But it is a worthy dismantling. And truth be told, it is the only way that things have ever changed in our world. I come to you with a core message of that you are innately beautiful and innately divine. And in order to really believe that, you would have to dismantle some very, very, very large scripts and all the beliefs that keep those scripts alive. But I ask you to think, to really ponder, what if you are just that beautiful? Not in the fabulous way that we see all over TikTok and Instagram, but in the absolute awestruck way that when we see another person's deeper aspects of themselves, or when a baby is newborn, that our breath is just absolutely taken away. I imagine if you could hold on to that belief and added in the second belief that you are truly divine, you would discover so many of the beliefs that you have don't serve you anymore. If you thought you were divine, then potentially, maybe, you would start each day differently. Your prayers would be one where instead of asking for relief, you would see you were in great partnership with God. Maybe, you would honor what you create instead of just getting it done to check off a box. If you thought and believed that you are beautiful, you would speak of yourself in ways and honor the ways that truly someone who deserved respect would be spoken about. I'm not saying that this is yours and yours only, but I am saying you truly have the power. And maybe those beliefs are too big. I think that's a fair thing to say, because those are big beliefs. But you could start with any belief, any absolute belief that does not really give you the satisfying outcomes that you so desire. You truly could start with a very simple belief, one where maybe you could just start with, I deserve a little bit more satisfaction today than I got yesterday. Now, as I said before, it might not be so easy, like a clicking of your sparkly red heels in your back in Kansas, no. But it would be a worthy way to start to reshape your perspective, to use your neural pathways in new ways that potentially lead you down an entirely new path. One that maybe starts off with a small little one, how am I more satisfied in my life? Adding to all sorts of ways where you decide to create satisfaction in everything you do. Perhaps even then adding in sprinkles of joy and love and delight. Who knows? But this idea of living your life and understanding you are at least a co-creator. Maybe not the only creator, but certainly you are one of the authors of your magnificent life. And whether consciously you choose to reshape your beliefs or unconsciously you choose to live by the ones that you have been living by, either way, this is fact. You are powerful. You are magnificent. And you and your beliefs shape the very world by which you live in. You might say to me, oh, baby, this is not easy. Yeah, I didn't say it was, but I can tell you that there are people who have done it before. So let's hear some of these fabulous little people who changed their perspective. For example, Mahatma Gandhi basically lived in India and was a subject of the British Empire, and the British Empire ruled India. So, if you will, let's start with that. Now, I'm not or ever was in Mahatma Gandhi's head, but I think it would be fair to say that that would have been potentially the old belief, that I am a subject of the British Empire. But basically, somewhere he decided that he was sovereign and that his dignity was non-negotiable. And when he chose that belief, ultimately, he was thrown first off of a train in South Africa for sitting in a whites-only compartment. And this led to him creating a nonviolent resistance, a mass civil disobedience that led to marches of all different kinds and ultimately an independence movement. And his belief of choosing to be a sovereign and that his dignity was non-negotiable was the key in the beginning of a very beautiful life that he lived. Viktor Frankl. Let's take a look at this belief. Potentially, he had a belief, or there was a belief, that suffering destroys the self. And then he chose a new belief. He decided that suffering reveals the deeper meaning of life. And you must understand that Viktor Frankl in Auschwitz realized that meaning was the last human freedom. And this belief was one of the most influential psychological frameworks of the 20th century. He changed what suffering meant and chose it to be something where there was the potential to reveal meaning, and that meaning could never be taken away from anyone, no matter how many other things were. And this changed his personal life, as well as the lives of all who study modern psychology today. Buckminster Fuller. Buckminster Fuller was basically at a place in his life where he felt meaningless. He was not doing well in his career. One of his children had recently died, and he literally was contemplating suicide. The belief that he was struggling with is that his life was meaningless. He sat by Lake Michigan here in Chicago, and he literally dug so deep to find some new belief to guide him. He would say it was actually a divine event. And from that sitting there came a place where he saw his life was not one to throw away and that he had work to do. And truthfully, from there, he decided to dedicate his life to humanity. And in that, he created amazing things that to this day actually uplift societies and create all sorts of possibilities for ways that we live better lives. I'm going to give you one more. Maya Angelou. Ultimately, especially for a woman and a Black woman, there is a prevalent belief that silence keeps you safe. In the very face of that, she decided that she was going to choose a new belief, that speaking truth liberates her. This belief shifted her from a traumatized child into one of the most influential writers and cultural voices of this century. Her belief changed literature and culture and certainly empowered women as well as Black people to stand up and say their truth. You don't necessarily have to become Maya Angelou or Mahatma Gandhi. nor are you necessarily going to be Buckminster Fuller or Viktor Frankl. But understand how powerful it is when you choose an empowering belief, one that gives you a reason to push through the struggles in your life, and ultimately perhaps even gives you cause to give a hand up to someone around you. So I guess the script that I'm asking you to flip is scripts to look and question your beliefs and to ultimately decide one fabulous new belief by which you are going to learn, you're going to grow, you're going to potentially test and become a new human being, because that belief pushes you into new territories, new ways of being, and gives you a new identity. So that, my lovely little human beings, my beautiful little human beings, my divine human beings, is what I believe is the end of today's episode. I'll see you all next week. Hey ho, thanks for hanging out with me. I truly hope you take this one and go for it, because there is something so absolutely magical about discovering a new perspective about the way you can live the world and the beliefs that support you in doing it. So until next week, have a magnificent time discovering new beliefs about you and me and the world.